Soundproofing a ceiling is usually required because there are loud impact noises in a room above, like footsteps, or because your room is disturbing a space above you with airborne noises like talking or music. Many people ask, when it comes to installing ceiling soundproofing, can you add it over the top of the existing surface? Well, you can, but it is not the best method. Firstly, your soundproofing won't be half as good. Secondly, it will cost you more as you need to add wood battens to your ceiling. And thirdly, it will take up considerably more headspace. For all those reasons, we always tell people to take down the ceiling before soundproofing. Coving certainly needs to be removed, and it can be reinstated after soundproofing, but only if a few simple rules are followed, and we'll look at those later on. So let's make a start. Just as with any renovation or home improvement job, there is a little bit of prep to complete first. If you're doing this whole job as a DIY project, then you might want to have an extra pair of hands on site with you and look at hiring a plasterboard lift because it's the easiest and safest way to install our soundproofing boards. Just as we have already said, your current ceiling surface needs to be removed, as well as the coving. If you have a light fixing, a pendant light is preferred for soundproofing jobs because it will only make one small hole in your ceiling. If you have downlights, consider having these changed for a single pendant fixing because spotlights will create many holes in your new ceiling. Before you screw the boards into place, make a mark on the walls so you know where the position of the joists are. And this will make it much easier to screw the later layers of soundproofing panels into the joists once they've been hidden. The first layer is acoustic plasterboard. This is heavier than regular plasterboard because the increased mass makes it better for blocking sound. Be sure that the boards don't make contact with the walls around the perimeter of the ceiling. This will create a sound transmission pathway. To make it easier for you, use some packers to keep the panels away from the walls while they're being fitted. Measure your ceiling and calculate how many panels you think you'll need. If you find that the last part will be a small slither of plasterboard, then you'll want to cut the penultimate piece smaller. This will allow you to fit two slightly smaller panels instead of one tiny piece that will be hard to secure and create a weak area. Screw this into place using a suitable wood screw and fill the perimeter gap with acoustic sealant. As you go, remember to pull through your cables for lighting by making a small hole. Around the wire, you can seal the hole with acoustic sealant. If you have downlights, then you'll need much bigger holes, of course, but you can also use acoustic covers. These are not as good as simply making smaller holes for a pendant light, however they do offer a little more protection against noise travelling through the light fittings. Before the first layer is completed, we need to seal up the gaps. Soundproofing is just like making something airtight, so small cracks and gaps do make a difference. Run sealant around the perimeter, into the gap that we left there and over the joins between your boards. You can now mark your new chalk lines using the pencil guides that you marked on the walls at the beginning. Now, the second layer is not a rigid board, but a heavy viscoelastic membrane. This membrane gives more mass and also reduces the rigidity of your system so that it can better reflect vibrations. Using materials with different levels of high mass is beneficial to soundproofing because you'll actually get diminishing returns from repeating the same material too many times. The very best method for getting the viscoelastic membrane onto your ceiling is to adhere it to the last layer of plasterboard before it's screwed onto the ceiling. Bond the viscoelastic membrane to the back of the boards and be sure to push air bubbles out as you go. Membranes are easily cut with a sharp blade and trim them to the edges of your boards for a flush finish. The second layer of plasterboard should be staggered to create a stronger system. Just like a brick wall isn't built with each layer sat directly over the first, but instead with the layers offset by half a brick each time, we also need to offset our second layer. This will mean that the joins between the panels won't match up and we strengthen the whole system. Use the plasterboard lift to position the boards in place and once again create 2 to 5 mm perimeter gap from the walls. Screw this layer in place with suitable wood screws and once again fill the perimeter gap with acoustic sealant. Over the joins between the panels, run scrim tape. This will offer good purchase for your skim plaster layer. If you're wanting to keep your coving, then you'll need to be very careful about how it's installed. The best scenario is just not to reinstate it, but we do understand that some people may want to retain this feature. What you need to do is either fix it to the ceiling or to the wall, but not to both. So let's say you fix it to the wall. You'll need to leave a gap of a few millimeters from the ceiling so that they don't touch, or we end up with a rigid join between your once suspended ceiling and the wall. You might have guessed it, but the gap will be filled with acoustic sealant. Now, I've mentioned this sealant a lot throughout, and you might be wondering if a standard cork would also work. However, it won't, so don't substitute the materials out in this way. Acoustic sealant doesn't have a rigid solid set. Instead, it has a flexible nature that works similar to our viscoelastic membrane by dissipating vibrations. So there you have it, a whole ceiling soundproofing system from start to finish. If you want any guidance in choosing the right system for your situation, then do have a look at our other ceiling soundproofing videos coming up next, or reach out to our helpful technical team. We're always on hand to get you the best results. For more information, head over to iKoustic.co.uk.